Hi, everyone. This is Maheen, and welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast, where we discuss insights, challenges, and innovations shaping the future of small businesses in Canada. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of design and technology, how it's evolved, where it's heading, and its role in shaping businesses across industries. Joining us today is a true visionary in this field, Adam Wilson, the founder of Polyform Studio and Skinner Techwear. With a design journey that started by launching seven of the first 500 apps on the App Store and a career that spanned over 100 product launches, Adam brings invaluable expertise in digital innovation. Recognized with two Emmy and numerous accolades, he's known for blending creativity and technology in groundbreaking ways. Adam, we are thrilled to have you on the podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Very thrilled to have you here to discuss the intersection of design, technology, and the small business innovation. Now, to begin things with this podcast, we'd love to understand the startup landscape in today's tech world because today startups are redefining industries with cutting edge tech and bold ideas. So let's really begin with an overview of the evolving tech startup landscape and its biggest opportunities. Adam, you're right at the heart of tech innovation. How would you describe the current landscape for startups and what trends are you seeing?
Well, it's a super, super exciting time to start a startup. The technology landscape is moving faster than ever. We are at the start of another seismic shift in everything to do with technology. We saw the same kind of shift in the mid 2000s when the iPhone came out and mobile became kind of the next big thing. Everybody had the internet in their pocket for the first time ever. Now we're moving into, of course, generative AI and how that's impacting everything, as well as the eventual shift away from phones into spatial computing and people wearing headsets and using augmented reality more often. So I think in that way, it's a super exciting time to be building something new because we're making this shift from what is the standard today and what is new and what's going to be tomorrow. The act of starting a startup, I think, it's simultaneously the easiest and hardest time ever to start a startup. Building things is easier than ever with, generative AI being able to help you with the coding side. Just general knowledge of building digital or even physical products is more accessible than ever. But distribution has become harder than ever as, the old ways of being able to buy ads and acquire users are not really working as smoothly as they used to. It's getting harder and harder to cut through the noise that is the world that we live in and get to your customers. So where, 5-10 years ago, the moat for a startup, what was their ability to differentiate themselves in the market was often the technology. Now it's quickly becoming their distribution channels. So it's a really interesting and exciting time to be in the startup world.
It's incredible to hear about these emerging trends, especially since so many small businesses can leverage them to innovate. But what specific advice would you give to new startups that are trying to navigate these changes, especially when it comes to staying competitive and innovative?
Yeah, my advice for startup founders in general is to start small, keep it simple, focus on your audience and the problem that you're solving. There's still lots of problems out there to be solved. So you don't need to build, the next chat GPT. You can focus on just solving one little problem for one specific market, but make sure that you're talking to the people in those markets and you're doing your user research and you're doing kind of grassroots user testing and building collaboratively with your customers, not trying to build something in solitude and then show it to the world, a year later once you put all this time and effort into it. It's really a great time to build in public over social media and to get feedback immediately on what you're working on rather than, again, doing the kind of hide away for a year and build something in stealth and then reveal it to the world. The world is moving too fast for that now. You need to build in
Mm-hmm.
public, build quickly, build with your customers. And in terms of how to stay competitive, as I said before, it's all about distribution now. So you can have the coolest product in the world, but if you can't get that product in front of customers, you're going to get outdone by somebody who can, because the ability for competitors to replicate your product has never been easier or faster. So a product itself is no longer competitive. It's all about the product plus distribution channel mix.
Now, it's inspiring to see the doors opening up and in tech. And listeners, on that note, please remember that every new trend is an opportunity. So please stay curious and ready to adapt. I mean, your business can be the next big success story. Adam, next we'll explore a critical component of any great product, which is design, and how it helps or how it shapes the tech we use daily. Because design is more than aesthetics; it's really about crafting experiences that connect with users, and with technology constantly evolving, design has become more crucial for success in tech. So, Adam, given your extensive experience, what are some of the design trends that are defining today's tech products?
Yeah, I hate to just keep coming back to it again and again, but distribution is the hardest part of starting a startup now, and that means brand and marketing. So having a a digital product that is just a widget that kind of like performs some operation and solves some little problem is great. But really, you need to build a lifestyle brand around solving that problem, around the niche that that problem occupies, and be able to speak your customer's language, be creating media that speaks to your customer, that talks about this widget that you've built, this solution that you've built, so that you can get it to them, right? So you build some type of brand equity and brand affinity with these people. When Silicon Valley was kind of in its heyday and the iPhone had just came out, if you built a really interesting, great app, that was generally enough to generate some type of success. Now you really need to have that really great brand, that really great marketing messaging, and that really great product all coupled together. So you're seeing in the marketing side of the design world, brands like Liquid Death totally taking huge market share in water, which is such like a boring category of product. But because they have a really great brand, because they have an innovative marketing message, they've been able to take a lot of the product market share from what was traditionally something dominated by companies like Pepsi and Coke. And you see the same thing in the startup and technology space now, where if you are using design to create a really great brand and marketing messaging around also a really well designed product, which means great user experience design, great user interface design, and then having that brand and marketing messaging integrated into that product, you can start to take market share away from some of these other big juggernauts like Google or Facebook or Adobe or what have you, depending on what niche you're in. So it's
Mhm.
really all about those three pillars of a great product, a great brand, and a great marketing message all coming together.
Well, that's really insightful. It's fascinating how design can be the driving force behind user engagement and satisfaction at the same time. But how do you see design adapting to new expectations for sustainability and usability in tech products?
Yeah, the bar of quality and the expectations of users have never been higher. So, for you to even enter a market, you need to be able to look at your competition and have your product look and act and feel comparable to your highest competitors, which is a tough position to start in. So, when it comes to the innovation and excellence and quality, you just need to be on top of what the expectations are for your customers. And when we're talking about sustainability, there's, of course, there's the three different pillars of sustainability, right? There's economic, environmental, and social. So when it comes to social sustainability, it's important that your brand actually means something, right? Especially for
Mhm.
younger audiences. the Gen Z audience specifically, they often buy from, align themselves with brands that have some type of social message, some type of social stake in the ground where they actually believe in something and put money and effort behind that belief system. That's important for brands in the tech space as well. When it comes to environmental sustainability, choosing to architect your software and company in a way that is doing good things for the environment instead of bad things, uh, staying away from things that are really resource intensive when they're not necessary, like blockchain or other technologies that are just resource intensive for potentially no reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
And offsetting the impact of servers or other architectural environmental negatives with either carbon credits or buying green energy or other things like that. And then on the economic sustainability pillar, being sure that you're compensating your staff properly, or you're having an equitable situation in terms of how you're billing customers and stuff of this nature. It's really a holistic sustainability concern you need to bring to your business, and just to be building something that's equitable and fair to the environment, your customers, the people that work for you, etc. And thankfully, I see a lot of motion in this direction of people building companies that are good for the world and not just good for the bottom line. And I think we'll continue to see more of that as more young entrepreneurs get into building in tech and building, new products in tech.
Design really is the soul of any product. And listeners, keep in mind that good design is about solving real problems, and a well designed product can be the key to your business's success. Now, Adam, as we look at what next, let's explore the frontier of tech beyond mobile phones, where new technologies are poised to make their mark. I mean, we've been living in the mobile era where new innovations are already setting the stage for the next big shift. Let's discuss what's coming next in tech and how it could reshape our world. Now, Adam, you've seen firsthand where tech is headed beyond mobile. What do you see as the most promising technologies for the future?
Yeah, mobile has been, the foundation of everything that we're using now. As I said at the start, we're starting to shift forward from that foundation now. We've kind of passed peak mobile. We've got, in terms of physical devices, of course, AR and VR are kind of what's on the horizon and what everybody's excited about. Apple joining the augmented reality space with the Apple Vision Pro last year really sent a signal to the bigger market that augmented reality is the direction everything's going. Meta this year announcing their Orion set of glasses. Obviously, the continued success of their Ray-Ban augmented reality glasses continues to push things in that direction. That technology is still a few years out. It's really a fun novelty right now. I don't know if it's useful for everyday use for everybody just yet. But personally, I worked on the Google Glass team back in like 2012. And every year since have been saying, this is the year for augmented reality. But I think realistically, we're still, 5 to 10 years out from the sale of augmented reality headsets eclipsing the sale of mobile devices. But I'm pretty bullish that it will happen over time. No device has stayed the one device that everybody uses for more than 10 or 15 years. We've already far surpassed that with mobile. So it's, it's a realistic expectation that we would move on to new devices, and headsets seem to be the way that everything is going. When we
Mhm.
talk about software architecture in general, obviously generative AI is changing everything. Will there even be an app store in 10 or 15 years? When somebody can, using an audio input and a generative AI backend, generate an app on the fly for whatever they're trying to do in that moment. Does it make sense to have software companies in the same way that we have them now? Probably not. I think we'll start to see lots of, you know, 2 or 3 person billion-dollar companies pop up over the course of the next 5 years, backed with generative AI, using these new pieces of hardware. And that will kind of signal the start of this new wave of Silicon Valley fueled, you know, next gen everything. So augmented reality is going to be huge as your kind of daily driver, way of interfacing with data. I think that'll start with replacing laptops and move on to replacing mobile. Virtual reality is continuing to get more foothold in the gaming space. I think we could expect virtual reality headsets to start to replace gaming consoles at the end of this decade. And then generative AI as a kind of underlying software infrastructure, I think we could expect to start replacing traditional applications in the next 2 or 3 years. And then by the end of this decade, I would expect that a lot of software on your phone will be replaced by generative AI.
That's incredible to hear, especially as so many small businesses look to adapt to these innovations. Now, the future of tech sounds thrilling, with limitless potential for small businesses. Up next, we'll discuss the journey of building and growing a startup, a process that requires grit, adaptability, and vision. And building a startup from scratch is a big challenge, but scaling it can even be harder. And Adam, with your journey through multiple startups, let's dig into what it takes to scale successfully. Adam, what key strategies would you recommend for entrepreneurs that are looking to grow their business in a competitive landscape?
That's a great question. Yeah, starting a startup is very hard. And I mentioned it earlier, but I'll come back to it. It's simultaneously never been easier and never been harder. The act of actually starting the thing, building the prototype, getting it to some early users, getting some early traction, that part has become increasingly more easy as the technical sophistication required to build something reduces. So it's easier to make more sophisticated products. Almost anybody can make an application now with a combination of, low code or no code tools, plus, tools like ChatGPT or Claude or other, programming copilot, generative AI tools. But it's that distribution that's becoming harder and harder. So what I would recommend to anybody who's looking to start a company, to build something new, is to be thinking about marketing and sales from day one and be building in public. I think something we're seeing that's super interesting in like the B2B software space right now is that B2B startup founders are having to become like LinkedIn and Twitter influencers, and building their product in public is becoming kind of part of the process of becoming a startup founder now, is that you need to constantly be talking about what you're building, getting feedback from your community, from the people who are interested in what you're building, and also using those channels to eventually sell your product into. See companies like Beehive, which is a newsletter software platform, doing this exceptionally well. And they've come out of nowhere and in 2 or 3 years become the dominant player in a multi-billion-dollar category, mostly on the back of the social media profiles of the founders. So there's a lot of marketing that goes into founding a startup now. And if you neglect or push off that part of the process, you'll find yourself behind and probably really struggling in those first couple of years. So I would recommend anybody trying to start a startup now, just find a problem that's worth solving, that you're passionate about, that you have some type of insight into, that is unique and valuable and potentially competitive, and build your product quickly in public, getting fast feedback from your customers, and always be focused on distribution and sales and marketing. Because the sales and marketing part of starting a startup used to be less important than the engineering and design and product part of starting a startup. But those roles are becoming inverted very quickly.
Mm-hmm. That's great insight, especially since building a strong foundation is so essential in today's fast-paced market. And listeners, keep in mind that scaling your business is about people and purpose. So please invest in both, and growth will follow naturally. Now, Adam, let's shift gears to the monumental achievement of reaching an acquisition, one of the most rewarding moments for any founder. Exiting a business through an acquisition is a major milestone. It's both a goal and a complex process that requires careful planning. Adam, you've led companies through multiple different acquisitions. Could you share some of the key factors or strategies that can help founders prepare for a successful exit?
Yeah, yeah. Going through an acquisition is, it's one of the most exciting things, I think, for a startup founder. It's kind of the end of the road, which is exciting and also kind of sad because it's the end of a journey. They're kind of out of a job after that often. But, I think starting a company with that being the goal is problematic because you can often take your eye off the prize of solving the problem. So I would never advise anybody to be focused on an exit when they're at the beginning stages or even the early scaling stages. But once you've found product market fit and you're starting to scale and you can acquire customers for less than they're worth, then you're in a really good position to start thinking about an acquisition. And the biggest pieces of advice I would give is understand your market for a product like yours. Who would buy you? Why would they buy you? What are they
Mm-hmm.
looking to get out of that deal? And how can you position yourself in the market to be an attractive acquisition by increasing your value in what those people are trying to buy you for? So if you are a services company, that's a very difficult kind of company to sell because your valuation is tied to headcount and headcount is
Mm-hmm.
tied to burn. So a company that's buying you is also buying the debt of having to pay all those people every month. So for me, I've sold several services companies, very hard to do. But the focus there is finding companies who want the talent that you have. So building an innovation studio, as I've done in the past, where you've got a lot of PhDs on board, you've got a lot of people who know how to solve complex problems that are very hard to find in the market for a much bigger company who wants to build a innovation studio internally. It's much cheaper to buy a team that is already composed than to try and hire all those individuals over the course of probably several years and then try and get them to work well together. So understanding where we fit in the market and who would be a potential buyer for a company like that was super important so that we could acquire more of the kind of talent that they would need strategically early so that when we had those conversations later on, our value was higher because we understood what they were actually looking for. Now, when you're selling a product company like a startup, obviously that is all about the numbers, right? What's your cost of acquisition of a customer? What's your lifetime value of a customer? What's your growth trajectory? What's your burn? All of these things go into a very intense equation that will generate some type of multiple in terms of calculating what the valuation of your company is. So it's often a kind of balancing act between your company being the right size, where it's an attractive purchase for somebody else. It's not too big. It's not too small. The growth trajectory is good. They know they're spending all this money on a company, but they can see through the data that you have acquired through consistent practice that if they were to buy your company and invest into further marketing and growth, they could grow it to a size that exceeds what they paid for it. So what goes into that from a founder's side is making sure that you have systems in place, right? If people are buying a company that is growing, you need to be able to show consistent growth and systems that got you there and that those systems are scalable. So your marketing systems, your sales systems, like you might have started a company at a time where economic growth was happening like crazy and you just happened to get all of these customers. Maybe it was related to a pandemic or something that was going on, some unique global circumstance, and you just exploded overnight. That's not sustainable growth, right? That's just a event that happened. Companies are interested in buying companies that have sustainable growth. And that is often all about process, all about having the right management in place, all about having analytics and data that back up all of your different growth metrics. So it's really important to have solid data rooms. It's really important to have solid management. It's really important to have your repeatable, scalable process for all of your customer acquisition and growth metrics, and often to have a fairly sophisticated like KPI system that you're running at your organization so that the acquiring body can buy you and then feel like they can just bump those numbers up over time and they don't need to like figure out how to operate this new company that they acquired. So it's all about just being really organized.
That's invaluable insight, especially for those that are looking to follow a similar path. Now, Adam, as we wrap up, before we let you go, what is that one piece of advice that you would like to give to designers and tech entrepreneurs who are just starting out?
Yeah, I think for designers and for tech entrepreneurs who are just starting out, I would say the best thing that you could do early in your career or just early in your journey is to find a really great mentor. Don't try to be a startup founder if you've never worked at a startup before. And if you can't get hired at a startup, it's probably a good sign that you shouldn't start one. So I would take a few years early in your career, work at a company that is similar to the one you dream of starting. Try and get in early at a startup to wear the many hats that will be required to get that company up off the ground. You'll learn a lot because there'll be very few people doing all the work. You know, if you want to learn about starting a startup, don't go work at Microsoft because they don't know anything about starting a startup there, right? You'll be like one of 200,000 employees. Work at somewhere that has 10 employees or 15 and make sure that last year they only had 5 or the year before they had 0, right? You're not trying to work at somewhere that's had 15 people for the last 10 years, right? You're trying to work at an early stage, high growth startup so you can understand what is the process of starting a startup? What are the different elements that go into starting a company? What do those look like at an early stage? And get some type of education actually out there in the market around how these processes work, how a company is started, how a company grows. You can read a lot of books. I love to read. Reading books are great, but having actual practical experience will always be better than what you can read in a book or listen to on a podcast.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Adam, for sharing your expertise and vision with us. We've learned so much from your experiences and insights into the future of tech and design. Again, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
And listeners, that was the end of our discussion with Adam Wilson. Today's episode took us through an inspiring journey with Adam, discussing everything from the evolution of tech to the art of scaling a business. We hope his insights provide guidance and motivation as you navigate your own entrepreneurial path. A big thank you to our partners, RBC, UPS, Constant Contact, IAG, and Google for their invaluable support in making these conversations possible. To our listeners, please don't forget to subscribe or visit our website, CanadianSME.ca, for more inspiring content. Stay tuned for more and see you in the next episode.